Did Ray Aldred make it in? Because I got some kind of text that he was waiting in some room to try to get in.
Yeah,
I see his
name.
All right.
We were in Winter Rock in 2012, but I don't know what we were doing then.
Okay, not at the conference though.
No, it was something else.
Okay, something happening there.
Well, we were in Albuquerque.
Okay.
Oh, Albuquerque, yeah, that's where I live now.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's cool sometimes. The cases of COVID are going up, so that's not good. But yeah, just kind of enjoy it.
Cool in the wintertime.
Yeah. It snowed here actually like 2 weeks ago, and then it warmed up again. It's really bipolar weather here. It's like really cold, and it gets warm again. Yeah, that's why I went to Phoenix last year, because we kept going up north to like Alaska and Fond du Lac, Yakima, and it was just freezing. So last year we went to Phoenix for the conference. So it was a lot warmer, and it was pretty good turnout. All right, who else is on the call? Hey, John and Rachel, good to see you guys again. Is this you guys' first WJEF?
It's our second. We went to the one in Anchorage.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't think I met you guys before that.
Yeah, I don't think we knew you very well at that point.
Yeah, not very well, I don't think.
No one knows me very well. I try to stay private.
You're just a figure in the shadows.
Yeah, I don't want to be figured out, so I try to keep it.
Yeah, but if you're a figure in the shadows, you're gonna like jump out just to scare us for your own personal entertainment, like in the middle of the night.
Well, thanks, Grant, for showing up. And the Grant's working at UNM with students there with IV, so I'll forgive them for working for IV a little while. So they do some good work there and have a good group of students. What else is on here?
What are we supposed to work for, Donnie? That would make you happy instead of unhappy, then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's ambivalence. Yeah.
Well, what's your non-ambivalent choice of work then?
I don't know. The design team keeps me busy, so I don't much time for hanging out with other people. Welcome back, Jay Goins.
Welcome, Jay.
Anybody make bannock this morning? Or fry bread?
There's a bunch of people trying to make fry bread in the afternoon.
Fry bread.
I can't see everybody.
Oh, hey, I know this guy. Brennan Akiyama. I remember him.
Hey, Brennan.
He's avoiding us.
Donnie, you using that Bluebird special flour to make some fry bread?
Oh, no, those are gifts. So this is... yeah, so I was doing gifts this morning. So this is actually for Mark Charles. He lives out in Washington, D.C., and so he's away from Bluebird Flour Company. So we'll send them that for just for running for president. So that's all you get from Indian country if you run for president as a native, is a bag of flour. But he doesn't get back very much, so we just send him flour, just thanking him for his work and for his seminar. If anyone got to hang out with him yesterday, that was pretty fun. And if you guys are enjoying the Indian timer, that was made by Tim Webster's son. It stops and it goes fast and slows down. Definitely good Indian timer. Don't use this timer to make your fry bread.
How do you know if you give him a bag of flour, he isn't just going to dump out the flour and use the bag?
Yeah.
He makes fry bread often. Actually, after the election, he had some mutton stew, and I think he made fry bread too. I can't remember. Do you remember her name? I usually have on the Navajo Nation when there's an election, they always have people who give mutton stew and fry bread. So we continued that tradition by eating mutton stew after the election. Well, it wasn't over, but I guess after the election. So I don't know whether to start now. The timer started over. Not sure if I should keep going, but yeah.
I think we need to follow the timer, Donnie.
Yeah, the timer.
It's an hour ahead now.
The timer's in charge.
We'll be trapped here forever.
Yeah, endless loop. Yeah, felt like that after the election. Just one day, the numbers don't change. Like, come on, somebody count faster. So it looks like the grants are spotlighted, so you guys can start us off. Or okay, there we go. So good morning to everybody, or actually good afternoon. Some people are in morning. For Brennan and people in Hawaii, I guess it's still pretty early. So good morning to you guys in Hawaii. Hawaii, is that how you guys say it correctly? Glad you guys are up early with us, and those on the East Coast are probably already having their lunch. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So thank you for joining us here for the third and final day. So yeah, WJF just seems to go fast, quickly, and that just always happens. So at least you don't have to fly home today or tomorrow. You guys get to just hang out after our session today. So thank you for coming back, and to welcome all of you back to our last session and our last day. So hopefully you guys got a good night's sleep. I saw there was a lot of people still in my diner last night, so kind of fun watching movies, hanging out. Good time with Superman last night too. Some people showed up to ask him more questions, and he did a good job of just explaining where he's from and what he's doing. So it's really good time. So today we are going to start off with some songs, or someone's going to sing or pray, and I'll let Hillary introduce our morning singers.
Yeah. So first we'll have an elder offer a prayer to open us up. What did you guys think of Jay last night? That was really good interaction with our elder, wasn't it? Let's give Jay another round of appreciation. All right. Thank you, Jay, for being willing to open us in prayer today.
Our Father, we are so grateful to you today for the confidence that we have that you are with us, each and every one of us, and you're with us collectively. Jesus, you promised that whenever we got together, just a couple of us, that you would make it a point to be right there with us, sharing the experience. And so we count on that. We just want to thank you for being the one that walks with us every single moment on our path and watches over us to keep us safe and to guide us in ways of harmony. Thank you for being the light that we follow and the lamp that keeps us walking on sure ground. And I want to thank you for the place that you've brought us, the things that we've been taught, and all the things that we're going to learn. I thank you, Lord, for the present, for today, for this, the Lord's Day, because it helps us to understand the past, and it gives us some expectation and anticipation for the future. And I pray that every single one of us that has attended even for a short amount of time or have been here the whole time, I pray, Lord, that when we leave the conference, we will leave changed, that each one of us will receive a full measure of what you brought us here for. I pray for our relationships. I pray that they will build as we depart. And I pray, Lord, that we will be able to not miss a single thing that you have in store for us today. I pray for all the people that are presenting. I pray that they will be able to deliver exactly what it is that you want us to receive from them. And I pray, Lord, that you will install it deep in our spirits. And we give you thanks for all that you're doing and all that you've done. And I pray all of this in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Aho.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay, for that prayer. So yesterday, Renee was with the elders, sitting down with them for dinner, and Renee asked them what kept them grounded during this, tumultuous time of COVID and stay-at-home orders and kind of the world changing constantly. And, our elders just said to pray, like set aside time to pray, to reflect, and to, just to be with others. So very good wisdom from our elders to just pray. What a good way to start our morning. And again, there's prayer groups and prayer peoples on hand too. So if you just need some time to pray or to be prayed over, there is people standing by, willing to pray with you or for you. So that's always available. So someone, producer, maybe put that in the chat too, where they can find prayer. That would be really helpful. All right. So today we are going to hear for the last time.
Hey, Donnie.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We have a student who's going to share a song.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Kelsi, are you with us? I'm having a hard time finding your video.
Yes, I am here.
All right. So Kelsi's going to share a song, and then we'll get it over to our speakers.
Hey, sorry if it's a little bit windy. I'm just outside of my church right now. I'm part of the praise and worship team here. So I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to share this song. I shared it back in WJEF when it was at Haskell in 2016. I was kind of nervous then, and I'm kind of nervous now. So it's Amazing Grace in Lakota. So here we go. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Now let me turn this way. Okay. Oh, Nunion te hawaun makshi chaka wani wash te kim iye waya we chon ni wan laka stay hey chante mahel washa maya ita wowi chate kinu leham owa beki wana otaki gle tehi wani egna ima chanda wash tehi helmani wash te Jula Otoka He Yachin Yata Ohinian Yan Wakan Tanka Wowi Tankin You have mawa nite wakan tanka yata nuwe wakan tanka yata wakan tanka yata nuwe wakan tanka. Amen. Thank you. Aho. Daya. Pilami api.
Pilami aye. Thank you, Kelsi. We're getting the chat's blowing up. The wind was singing with you. That was beautiful. All right, back to you,
Thank
Donnie.
you.
Yeah, thank you. So glad there's a room full of talented people to be able to sing and to sing songs like that on the spot. So right outside of church. So I don't know, that's pretty cool. Being outside and be able to sing along with the wind. So, all right. So we have the distinct pleasure and honor of hearing from the Woodleys once more. So this is their kind of their last session, but definitely not the last time you have to hear from them. Randy does a podcast too. You can find him on most podcast channels. He's also a professor and teacher with Nate. So if you want to look him up that way and learn even more from him, you can do that, or even visit them where they live on their farm. They have students, they have people coming all the time to help out and just learn how to live in a good way with the land. So yeah, definitely do a Elohe field trip. I'm sure they'll welcome you. They'll probably put you to work, but that's a what good people do when they go and visit. They hear from them and they also help them out. So Woodleys, you guys are on, and thank you again for joining us this morning or afternoon.
Okay. Couple corrections. I'm not with Nate's anymore.
Okay.
It's been a couple years. But but I did with Ray and others who are here, I helped to found Nate's, and for many years was part of making that happen. Yeah, we're also, we after COVID, we'll be looking for interns. So if there's any young people or young couple who want to come spend like 6 months or a year or something like that, and we can talk about something like that. So yeah, so we felt this morning that we needed to, because of everything going on in the country, and because of the kind of material that we're presenting today, we needed to sing a healing song to begin with. So so you can this is a prayer. It just asks for healing. It's a Paiute healing song that was given to us by Judy Trujillo. And so this is our prayer. Be upon a na be hana 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 be upon a be Hana. So we've done Friday night, which was we told a bit of our stories, and then we talked about Jesus and Shalom and the harmony way, and that's what the kingdom is about, this harmony kingdom, the Shalom kingdom, and how it has the similar values of our indigenous peoples. And then yesterday, decolonizing our faith. So we went through and talked about the dualism in the Western worldview and those kinds of things. And today, we want to come to the theme of the conference, which is community of creation, and talk about Jesus and the whole community of creation. And I don't know how much time we have, but we like to take a lot of time. I don't know, but because we like to share some stories and things, but I hope we have time for that. But I have just a very quick PowerPoint that I will introduce to you, and after that, we want to maybe share some stories. And also what we want more than anything is some dialogue. So a lot of questions came up Friday. We didn't have time for them on yesterday. But what's important to us is that we are able to talk to one another. That's the way it would happen if you were here at Elohe. And that's how we create something new together, new ideas, and we learn something together. So I'll kind of kick it off with this little PowerPoint here. And
we got 40 minutes. We got 40 minutes.
Who said?
Right there.
Oh, 40 minutes? That's it? Oh, man.
We've got small group afterwards, so I think we could probably cut into small group time and just have an open discussion. If I know you had a lot of questions for the Woodleys yesterday. So
we already know
we'll make it work for what you need to do.
Okay, thank you. Because we're not just trying to hear ourselves talk. We know what we know already. What we want to do is to have interaction with you, and so that's really important to us. So maybe I'll just go through this PowerPoint really quick. Yeah, start something like that. Share screen. And then, so if you can see that, I think I'm just going to leave it like this because this way I can still see people. Can you see this okay? Hillary, can you see that okay? Yeah?
Yes, I can see it. Yep.
Okay. All right. So this is a photograph that I took of it's called the Blue Hole. It's in Red Clay Park in Tennessee, Red Clay, Tennessee. It's one of our sacred sites, but all springs are sacred to our people, our Cherokee people. And we use that spring water for different ceremonies and things. So, but when I was little, or when my kids were little, we used to bring them here when we lived in the South. And this is a special place. It's a place for thinking. It's a place to really, you feel like you're walking among your ancestors. And there's a story about the Blue Hole. And the story is that it's on the other side is the exact opposite world as this, but everything is the way it's supposed to be. And so it's all in harmony and it's all in balance. And so the idea, it reminds me very much of when Jesus said, on earth as it is in heaven. This other dimension where everything is done right, done in a good way. That's how we're supposed to walk on this earth. And we have these teachings throughout our ceremonies and our songs and those kind of things. And we've been taught, over all the years under missionary conquest, even though there are a lot of times good intention that these things were, stories and they're, and that's because the Western worldview has to judge them by a different standard. And they go, well, did that really happen? Well, if you understood the people who wrote the scriptures, that's not why they wrote it. They didn't write it so post-enlightenment people could go, oh, let me prove, if you're conservative, let me prove it happened. Or if you're liberal, let me prove it didn't happen. Those are Western arguments. That's not the argument of our people. Now, we've all been Westernized, right? We've all been succumbed to thinking that what we're told about Jesus and about the scriptures is, even though it's through a Western lens, that it is the way it is. But maybe when we begin to see with our indigenous eyes, I understand Mark Charles talked about indigenizing our theology yesterday. That's what I'm talking about here. Maybe when we begin to see with our indigenous eyes. Edith and I have been really fortunate because we were exposed to a lot of older elders from different places. We also, besides living in different Indian communities, we traveled for 4 years all over. And we were really fortunate. We've been to the Pueblo feast days and the Hopi bean dance and to Blessing of the Lake over in Anishinaabe country, and to Sundance and to sweat lodges all over the place. And we've been to all these ceremonies, and they're all beautiful, and they all teach the same values that Jesus was teaching. Mm-hmm. It's a shame that we've been told for so long that our ways are so different than Jesus's. So there's a statement here in this, when I talk about the elders, the older elders, I'm talking about people who were, they're either parents or they were born in a teepee. What would you say?
They're born in teepees.
Yeah. These are, And those are the people when I think of, like, what am I supposed to do as an older person? Those are the people who I think of, you know, and what would they say? That comes through my mind, because I know that they were full of the Spirit of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to give us a little warning here. I got a quote from a book, good book. And I took the liberty of changing. The quote is about indigenous education, but I messed with it a little bit, and I've replaced it with indigenous religion. And the quote is this: the machinery of indigenous religion may simply replicate European systems, but even as such religion resembled traditional Native American systems on the surface, without strong and healthy leaders committed to traditional values and the preservation of our nationhood, they are going to fail. Our children will judge them to have failed because a religion that is not based on traditional principles of respect and harmonious coexistence will inevitably tend to reflect the cold, calculating, and coercive ways of the modern state. The whole of the decolonization process will have been for nothing if indigenous religion has no meaningful indigenous character. Worse, if the new religion does not embody a notion of power that is appropriate to indigenous cultures, the goals of the struggle will have been betrayed. Leaders who promote non-indigenous goals and embody non-indigenous values are simply tools used by the state to maintain its control. And that's the end of the goal of colonialism. It's to get those who are being colonized to think like the colonizer, and then to do the work of the colonizer. So what is our purpose on this earth? Our purpose as a Katua man, as a son of Cherokee ancestors, I was told that our purpose is to co-sustain the whole community of creation, to be, the Bible sometimes calls it steward, to be those ones who maintain harmony and balance, whether it's with our ceremonies or whether it's taking action or whatever it is, that's our job. Our role as human beings in creation is to maintain harmony and balance. We have the privilege of co-sustaining all of creation with Creator and the earth and all creatures contributing. This is called Elohe in our Cherokee way. In the Genesis story, human beings are created last, not to rule, and I'll deal with that in a minute, but to feel the need to co-sustain, not as the crown of glory, but as the only creatures uniquely equipped to co-sustain the rest of creation. It's a responsibility. We're not over the land, but serving and preserving God's creation. And so to be a co-sustainer in the community of creation is foundationally what it means to be a human being. This is who we are as human beings. This is why we're here. We're the only ones who can do this out of all God's creatures. Who does creation exist for? It exists for the Creator and for Creator's pleasure. You know, we're just here for a little short time, each of us, compared to how long humanity has been here. Our pleasure that we get out of it, that's a byproduct of God's pleasure. It follows in to remake the creation in our own design can come dangerously close to idolatry. To willfully damage creation is a sacrilege, and to take pleasure in its damage is purely sadistic. So if our role as human beings is foundationally to take care of creation, we have to be very careful how we tread on this earth. So I want to deal with this idea of dominion, because that's always comes up. You know, we're supposed to have dominion, but that's not really what it's saying. So, and there's a little word study here, and I'm not going to go into depth, but this radah, this Hebrew word, it's also translated as rule, is most times not actually created as it says. So the focus is to fill out or complete our role in the community of creation. So to rule and subdue the earth is to give responsibility to work the garden and to care for it, not to rule over it. Dominion does not mean to dominate by force, as it has historically been interpreted, but it is better interpreted in context to take responsibility for, as in the agent being responsible to assure the well-being of those in their care. Domination only serves the purposes well within hierarchy and to benefit forced empires and kingdoms. Christianity has largely failed in its mandate to till and keep the soil and to serve the community of creation, in part due to a radical misunderstanding of humanity's place within the created order. We don't understand that we're just part of it. We're not above everything. We're not below everything. We're just a part of everything. And our unique role that creators put us here is to take everything in consideration and keep it all in harmony and balance, whether it's people, animals, plants, the environment, the atmosphere, the waters, whatever it is. That's our role. That's why we're here as human beings. Now, I have to ask a question. And I can't see the chat right now, so so I don't know if people can answer this or not by that way, but I guess if you've got the chat going, I don't know. Maybe I can't. No, it's not available. Okay. So who is the creator? The creator is who? So I will ask that question to a lot of people in a lot of places, and they'll say, God. And I'll say, well, let me read some scriptures to you. And so I read John chapter 1 and the whole chapter, but where it says especially, he made everything that was made, talking about Jesus, he made everything that was made, and without him, nothing was made that was made. That's pretty emphatic. Or the Colossians passage, Colossians 1:15-20, where it basically says that he made everything that exists and he holds all things together. Jesus, the creator. Or in 1 Corinthians 8:6, where it talks about God made it all through Jesus. Or Hebrews 1:1-2. You know, there are all these places in scripture that attribute creation itself to Jesus Christ, the creator. So now my next question is this. If our people have been praying to creator all this time, who have they been praying to? I know some of your brains are doing flip-flops right now. Oh, do we have to know the name? There's lots of people who didn't know the name. You remember Jesus, people came to him and said, hey, there's people who are, who are doing this stuff, but not in your name. And he said, well, if they're not against me, they're for me. So if Creator Jesus made everything, doesn't it seem like we should take care of everything? Mm-hmm. Because he's come to reconcile all things to himself, not just our quote unquote souls, but everything to himself, including on earth as it is in heaven. And we're not doing a good job of it. So in a Western worldview, nature, the nature relationship with the land has changed over time. And there's a direct corollary in history that shows how people treat other people and how they treat the land. And if you want to just think about it this way, how do European Americans historically treat Black, Indigenous people of color, but especially women? And how do they treat the land? Control the land. Control women. Objectify the land. Objectify women. Expect production from the land. Expect production from women. To exploit the land and exploit women. To serve at one's pleasure. the land serve at our pleasure, and the whole rape culture. And our earth is being raped daily. The whole community of creation that Christ created is being raped daily. So I could go into this whole philosophical thing, but I don't think I'm going to. It's just basically that how the Western worldview affected how we think of God. We just said, like, God's, totally in control, and so then I don't have a place in this, right? But I want you to think about a place where deforestation is happening, where topsoil is being depleted, where oceans and bays are polluted and fished out, rivers and streams are undrinkable. Air pollution makes breathing unhealthy. Disease kills tens of thousands of people. Large mammals are going extinct. Classism reigns via gender and wealth and race. The cities are overcrowded. The majority of people are living in poverty. Corruption and greed are running rampant. The 1% are the only ones that are getting anything. Hunger, disease, war, economic depression. And you think about that place, and if you said Western Europe in the late Middle Ages, you'd be exactly right, because that is the shape that Europe was in as they got ready to come over here. No wonder they wanted to be here, of course. But it's how it happened that was so tragic, right? But what's happening now to us? Same things. Our animals and plants are going extinct. Our rivers are getting polluted. We can't hardly even eat fish anymore. Large mammals, topsoil's disappearing, aquifers are disappearing. All of these things. Why? Because in 500 years, that worldview has not changed. And yet our people have been able to live on this land for tens of thousands of years without destroying it. But this is progress, right? This is civilization. The world desperately needs an indigenous worldview to survive. The Western worldview has been a failure. I mean, there's some good things, yeah, there's some great things. But the worldview itself, maybe not so great. I'm gonna skip ahead because just know this, in a harmony worldview and in Jesus' worldview, human beings are fully physical and the earth is fully spiritual. It's not the opposite. Healing, therefore, by definition, should always consider the healing of people and the healing of our histories and the healing of all creation, because all creation is sacred. And there's a problem with worldview when one is considered sacred and the other's not. And it was Chief Seattle who said, every part of the soil is sacred. And I won't read all this, but he said, the earth responds better to our feet and our touch than it does to yours, because he noticed even then, 1854, they don't treat the earth the same way. But that's not what the scripture teaches. The scripture teaches things like this. Ask the animals, they'll teach you. Or the birds of the air, they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Or let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this, and his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all humankind? So I'm not going to go over how bad it is, because I think you all know how bad it is. We could talk about water, we could talk about air, we can talk about land, all of those things, maybe we can talk about in the future. But right now, what I want to talk about is balance. Basically, human beings have become the primary consumers, and that's not our job. Our job as human beings is not to be the primary consumers of energy by extracting everything we can out of the earth and by cutting down everything we can out of the earth. Our job is we're tertiary consumers. We use a little bit here and we lose a little bit there, But right now, the earth's fighting back. The earth's trying to maintain balance. And what the earth is doing is saying, if human beings are going to be the primary people who make it out of balance, then I'm going to take them out. in Deuteronomy and in Exodus, they talk about moral pollution in the land, and it says the earth will spit out its inhabitants. But I think it's doing that physically also. With all of our, major disruptions occurring. I've been watching this since 1999. I started keeping track before I saw it, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, forest fires, all of them have been increasing both in frequency and severity. And so now we're in a mess. Well, there's a problem because we're not building the way God likes to build. And like God likes to build, in diversity. This is who God is. God doesn't build, and there's nothing singular in the whole universe, by the way. Whether it's, to the, as far as you can in the skies and the stars, or whether it's down to the most subatomic particle. Even the most subatomic particles, they've discovered something called quarks. And quarks are these little things that move around, and they're always in groups. They're never alone. It's, they only discovered this about 5-6 years ago. And the people who got it, they knew they were there, but the people who actually photographed them got a Nobel Prize for it in science. But everything is unity and diversity. That is who God is. That is how God consists. And the way we build things looks more like this. Right? We think that when nature is in chaos like it is right now, we think that's chaos, but that's actual stability, because nature adapts. God has put in nature to adapt. But we seem to go the opposite direction. We want things in order, which to us means control. But adaptation is actually stability. And our indigenous people, no matter where they were on Turtle Island, have adapted throughout the times. But they haven't lost their values, right? You adapt your methods, but you don't lose your values. And God builds in open systems, and homogeneous or closed systems are actually built to die. So a homogeneous race, age, gender, crops lead to eventual destruction. The nature of a closed system is to consume itself or to be consumed by more adaptive systems. The nature of open systems is to adapt. Now, I guess I'm going to kind of end this, but I'll just say a couple of things. For millennia, the whole of creation has been producing enough energy to allow humans limited consumption. Humanity in just a few generations has accelerated consumption exponentially. Mother Earth is now trying to rebalance the overuse through random acts of nature. She is reclaiming territory, spitting out the inhabitants in order to restore harmony. The top of the food chain is now the Earth herself. And we've been watching this. We've been watching how the Western way of life, our indigenous people, have been watching how Western people's worldview leads to alienation from the earth and from others and from all creation, and creates a false bubble that the West thinks will preserve them, but it won't. So I'm just going to end with this right here. Shoshone Elder once said this: don't begrudge the white man his presence on the land. Though he doesn't know it yet, he's come here to learn from us. But my question is to you: what will he learn from you as indigenous people? Will you still have those same values? Or will we only be able to offer the same thing that's been given to us by the West? So I want to talk just for a minute. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and talk about some of the times in my childhood, but maybe just this one. So when I was a kid, I used to go to this one creek, and it was my place. And I would just lay down in the middle of the sun. There was a woods on this side and the woods on this side, and the creek went in between the two. And I would lay there in the sun, and it'd be wintertime, but it'd be warm. And I would listen to the creek, and different sounds register different, harmonics, and they go, on a rock or a bubble or a limb, and you lay there, and it just would put me to sleep, you know. That was just a kid, you know, one of the places, the many places throughout my life I've had a deep relationship with, but that place was a special place. What if there's no more special places for us anymore? What if progress in the Western worldview takes us to a place where we can't be those people who can speak to the earth and listen to the earth teach us? There's a lot at stake right now. And as people who are following Creator, if we don't do it, I don't know who's going to do it. So I'm just going to see if Edith has anything she wants to say right now.
You know, the earth is, as you heard Randy speak, is that, you know, the earth is crying out right now, and it's wanting to, it's wanting us, the inhabitants, to hear her, you know, and the way I hear her is, you know, by finding that special place where it's so that you can hear the Creator speak to you, and also be able to hear the earth speak to you. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, I don't know, it don't talk to you, but it does in a way, in the way, like Randy was saying, the water, the bubbles, just the flow over the rocks and the different things in the water, and then the trees, you know, the wind in the trees and stuff like this. It makes the music. And if you actually just sit there, you know, and you sit there in that place and just open your heart and your mind, kind of turn off your mind, really, you'll hear it. And it's just, and it's those special places. And if we don't do something about those, they're not going to be there no more for our grandchildren. I have 5 beautiful grandkids, and, you know, I'm scared that they're not going to have those kind of special places that Randy had and that I had growing up. You know, we all have our different types of creation stories, right? Every tribe and really every nation really has their own creation stories of who they are as people. And you know, it's just, there's a reason why those creation stories were handed down after generation, is to teach us to where we really came from. I guess I just would like to challenge everybody, go find their creation stories. And then go find those quiet spots.
Yeah, so I think, you know, we've presented a lot of stuff over the last 3 days, and, you know, we just want to have a time for people to dialogue about any of those things. But we felt like that in a lot of ways that today was important that we understand our own place and we understand who our Creator is. Because it's going to change your theology if you end up believing what the Bible actually says. Your theology cannot stay the same. It cannot stay Western, because the West doesn't really have a place for Jesus as Creator. You know, he's just like the Savior. It's just about the cross mostly, right? No, that's not what it's about. That's not even what it says. It talks about a whole life and a life before that life. And unless we understand that, we're not going to get it. So anyway, yeah, we want to hear from you. And anybody has anything to add? We don't know it all. We just know what we see and what we know and what we hear. And
what we've been doing over all these years.
Yeah, we've
experiencing. different elders we've talked to.
Yeah. So our life's been pretty rich. We've been exposed to a lot of different groups, a lot of your tribes, elders in your tribes probably. As I heard all the tribes listed, we knew, we thought of people and we thought of places we've been. But yeah, so we just want to have a conversation. We'll open it up.
There's some questions coming through in the chat. John Grant has asked, what do you say to white Christians who say everything's going to get worse anyway, things won't get better until Jesus comes back?
Well, to me, that's a really kind of sad statement. What it says is, I'm not going to obey Jesus until Jesus comes back and gets me. Because to obey Jesus is to embrace this good life that he gave us, to live a life more abundantly, to live a life in shalom, or harmony, as our different peoples would say. And if we're not going to obey Jesus, and we just wait for Jesus' return, whatever way you imagine that to be, and there's a whole lot of different theological ideas about what that actually means. But, what kind of a faith is that? If there's a cost to following Jesus. You got to do what he says. Yeah. Or what's the point? If a Western idea is that, well, it's just about my spirit and my soul, and it really doesn't matter what I actually do, right? And that's what I hear in that, and that, he's going to come back and get my spirit or whatever someday, Well, that Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough trouble on its own. But do what he says today. And he said, I think 31 times, follow me. So you do the things that Jesus was doing. So one of the things I say to young people when I talk is some people are called to ministry, specifically, and to build communities. Others are called to politics. Others are called to, but we need people to take seriously these callings, maybe like an urban park ranger or city planners or people like mayors and environmental engineers and people who can, what's the ones that always approve everything, city attorneys and, people who have influence about how the earth is going to be treated in your community. And for too often we've looked at Christianity and we said, oh, there's only these kinds of areas that we can go into. But all of these areas help to fulfill our role as caretakers, as co-sustainers on the earth. And so these are really, really important to find a place where you can have influence. Because cities don't have to be built the way they're being built, by the way. Look up Curitiba, Brazil, if you want to see a city that it's very different, that bends everything it does toward creation and honoring creation. So we need people with imaginations, and we need indigenous people in places of influence if we have an indigenous worldview. And we need white people also with indigenous worldviews. And not just white, but all of us have been westernized. We all need to indigenize and then understand our role, our mission in the world according to that caretaker role.
So jumping off that, there was a question about newcomers to Turtle Island. So white people, but any immigrants, and then also there's a question about being mixed race. But how to come in a good way, how to participate in the land and the things you're talking about, as folks who don't know this land as well.
Yeah. So the strange thing is if you read all the anthropologists and the early explorers and all those kinds of things, most of their first contact with indigenous people in this land were very positive. They were welcome and they were fed and they were given shelter, but only after abusing that did things change, because that's what our Harmony Way calls us to do, is to be hospitable, to invite people in that have need. And so, it didn't happen every time, but it happened most of the time. And as a nation, how do we know we have shalom? Well, how are we treating the foreigners? How are we treating the immigrants? That's a really important question for us to ask. And then what was the other part about welcoming? And
I think the question was like how to participate in a good way. It says, how do newcomers to Turtle Island participate in the land? Is it okay if we plant tobacco, smudge, garden, attend ceremony?
So I think the land and the values of our people have been in the past in harmony. And so the things that we learn from the land are how to live in harmony, right? So so how do you get, if you're a newcomer, how do you get that, I don't want to just say knowledge, but how do you get that into your heart? You have to contact and be in contact with indigenous people. Now, do you forget who you are? Because the American myth is, oh, forget that you're Irish, forget that you're Scandinavian, forget that you're, Latino, forget whatever it is that you come from, because now you're American. Well, that's a lie. That's part of the American myth. We are who we are because God made us who we are. Mm-hmm. And we bring that gift of who we are and our identity to this new land. And then the people of the area that you live in, they're the ones who then are able to welcome you or not welcome you, or at least understand their stories and the causes that they're fighting for and things like this, so that you understand that there's something about my new identity in this land. I have an old identity, but the new identity also has something to do with the land. And the land teaches these values. And so the people who have been living on that land are the ones that I have to learn from. Even if I can't get in contact and it's just through their stories. They're the experts. They're the ones who've been living with this land for so long. And this applies to most of us because, Edith and I don't live in our homelands. We live in the homeland of the Kalapuyan people. Particularly the Yamal bands and the Tuolumne bands. And so we attend their stuff. We talk to their cultural people and to their leaders, and we try to, figure out, and we ask permission, but we ask, how can we live on this land in a good way and honor your people? But they're the experts. They've been here for, 13,000 years or something like that, maybe longer, who knows? So they understand the land that we live on. We don't, understand the land we live on, and we will never understand it the way they do. And if we cut ourselves off from that, then we're foolish, But if you think you can just universalize land, and that you can live the same way in Florida as you can Texas, as you can Michigan, as you can California, that's a Western way of thinking. That's like all land belongs to me, and all land is universalized, but land is specific. Creator interacted with specific peoples and specific places for thousands of years in a certain way. And if we ignore that, again, we're foolish.
And kind of a follow-up question on that. So someone, Ray is asking about some practical ways we can model a life that honors Creator, sets free, and lives in harmony with Mother Earth, especially for someone like me who lives in Los Angeles or another big city. How do we live this out?
Mm-hmm. So part of what we do here at the Elahe Indigenous Center for Earth Justice is we don't just teach people how to be farmers, but one of the things that we're doing more and more and inviting those who know more than we do is as guests is to teach about how do you live this way in cities. Mm-hmm. So we would, you would say, how do we live sustainably or regeneratively in cities? So values have to change. The individualism has to go and corporateness has to come in, community, corporate gardens, looking out for one another, those kinds of things. And so you actually have to build a neighborhood. And there's a group in Seattle called the Parish Collective, and I think there are in other places around. And they've kind of got this idea. I'm not saying I don't know enough to know they do it perfect or not, but they look at their community as a parish. That means if their community, their Christian or Christ following community is there, then they see themselves responsible in the whole community. So what do? They look for where things are, shalom has been broken. And then they put their money and time and effort into dealing with those things. And so, we all, 70% of Native people now live off reservation or in urban centers. And so we're all living in different people's lands, and we're all living in different communities. There are a lot of us other than our own. And so we have to begin to reimagine ourselves as like, how can we be helpful in our communities? Yeah. How do we, there's all the, the changing your light bulbs and drying your laundry in the line and, you're driving, electric cars and all those kinds of things you can do if you can afford to do them, right? Solar, etc. Those are all good and hopefully coming our way. But I think the earth itself teaches you how to live in a good way. You don't, you don't treat the earth badly when you're in a relationship with it.
So we've got a question from Heather and Warren. What if our ancestral values and traditions can never be done again because of all the fences and animals that have been destroyed? And they in their ancestral land asking that question. And I had a related question, not about my ancestral land, but about kind of how you deal with the grief of things that are being lost.
Yeah, we're simultaneously lamenting and still moving forward, right? That's the healing process. That's the idea of the wounded healer. Yeah. So, well, I think if you're standing on ground, the land is still there, and it can still teach you. If there are birds flying over you, they can still teach you and speak to you. If there are trees or grass or water, it's not all lost. It's still there. So I can't imagine a place like that. And I hope we don't ever have to experience a place like that. But yeah, I mean, it's all here. I mean, the Bible didn't come along for a long, long time in the history of the church. But, the first book God gave us is the creation. That's the one that we look at and we learn from. My mother used to say, we understood God. We understood, God's sacredness. We understood God's love. We understood power, all of these things about God from our creation. We just didn't understand how much God loves us till we heard the story of Jesus. But then, the second part of that is, and so we were this close. But when the missionaries came, with their culture, they made a gap as wide as the Grand Canyon. And so, we have to heal that gap, right? And we can't heal it through a Western worldview. It can't be done. That's the one that alienates us from our values and from creation. We have to do it through our indigenous ways.
Bill Foster, isn't she the one with the crust?
Ray Aldred, another one of our elders, has made a few comments in the chat about this as well. And Ray, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share what you were saying in the chat in response to that question. So you are unmuted now if you want to say something.
You mean about the treaty? Well, there's two things to get access to traditional land. Can you hear me okay? Anyway, one was we are going to court as Indigenous people to affirm. So one of the things about the treaty was, and this is in Hawaii too, I think, what they told me anyways, was that part of what the treaties was, and as being Indigenous people, is access to the land, access to the ocean in Hawaii. And you can't put up fences to keep people from accessing the land, living in harmony with the land. And so far when we get to court, we win most of those cases. And then the government has to negotiate with Indigenous, especially on the West Coast here, hereditary chiefs. They have to negotiate with the hereditary chiefs, the government does, about how that looks today, given the fact that we have cities and those things. And they're working things out, not perfectly. And then, so then we're using the Indigenous Treaty, which is also in New Zealand, to call people back to, and it's basically a call to live like family. And land is part of the family, which Randy has done a great job of talking about. So, and peaceful protests, again, abhorring any kind of violence, but peaceful protests. So what happened in Canada is they shut everything down, the rail lines, everything. So then the government had to negotiate. They had to. And they did. And then that's kind of how I think Indigenous people are calling everybody back to something else. Good job, Randy. Great
Amen.
comments.
Yeah. I miss hearing you, Ray. Yeah, that's all really good, important stuff right there. You know, I mean, we have to be activists in whatever way that means for us to be that. You know, some of you might even be lawyers, you know, who knows? But you know, we can't be, you know, the kind of Western Christianity that's been taught for the past several hundred years here is basically ask us to become dependent, to be helpless, to not be active, and to not think for ourselves, not to have our own indigenous theology or our own indigenous ways of thinking about scripture, or, you know, and that, you know, our most active time is Sunday mornings when we go to church, right? That's not what Jesus taught. So we need to look at it through our indigenous eyes, whether you're indigenous or not.
I wonder if you could speak, because there's a real both and here of listening to the land directly that you've been talking about, and then what Ray's sharing about activism and really fighting for regaining of indigenous sovereignty and in the legal battle. I wonder if any of you elders could speak to kind of the discernment process of what to take on. I think a lot of young people feel torn between so many ways to be involved in the fight, and then also it's the grief is overwhelming, and so I wonder if you could just speak a little bit to how do we find our way.
So I'm just going to say this while someone else is probably waiting to speak. But yeah, I believe in a calling, you know, and I have stories of how God has called me to things and shown me in creation the direction I was to go. And calling is not an easy thing. It's like struggling, oh my gosh, struggling hard, sometimes for years. But your calling might be to be involved in, you know, whatever, a park ranger, I don't know, a city planner, you know. I mean, these callings are sacred things, and we all have our place, but it's a struggle to find out what it is. And so you have to, it's a struggle, and there's suffering involved in that.
I think that Randy's got the key. Is people need to, when you think about, you need to recast evangelism and mission as within creation. So then early in the church, Athanasius recast mission and evangelism really as getting creation back online. And Irenaeus thought what Christ did was he returned things to the proper trajectory, creation, where everything was created perfect but immature and needed to grow to fulfillment. And then Christ coming with, and I think Randy did a good job of saying that, return things to the trajectory for creation. And then if we think in those terms, that answers a lot of the other questions about, you know, that's why I just think there's a bunch of relationships. So whatever relationship you can work on, that's what you do. So if you're not in good relationship with family, then you work on that relationship. But if that's a little bit too much, because there's been too much trauma, maybe then a relationship with the land is something you can do. Then you work on that. And then there's also the relationship with ourselves. We try to fix our own crap so we can see a little better. And then the relationship with other people. It's kind of which one is presenting as the one you can work at. I don't think you should beat yourself up about it either. It'll be fairly obvious the ones that you can work on. Usually they're the ones that are bugging you. Those are the ones you're supposed to work on. So then that's where you start. And I always think that whatever one you start, they all lead to the other one. That's how I think of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I better agree with these two guys because they seem pretty smart. I think we all have come to a pretty clear, maybe convincing, no matter what age you are, that if your heart's in it, then you do it with all your heart. If you've got to do it because it's an obligation, then it has you have less capacity to bring about more than just a natural result from putting your energy into it. I probably didn't say that right, but if your heart's in it, then the ability you have to bring about results goes beyond just your how smart you are and how strong you are. There's a spiritual issue, and just like any other kind of context where we need to commit ourselves to something, it's always God directing us to what he has purposed for us to do. So seeking the Lord on what is my purpose and understanding, moving towards an understanding of what God has purposed you to do will give you not just a solid understanding of what the right thing is to do, but it'll also give you a supernatural ability to bring it to pass because it's not just you doing it. Like, for example, Mark Charles, over the years, developed a very clear understanding of what his purpose was. And he has followed that purpose all the way to Washington, D.C. He knows what God has called him to do, and he's doing it. And that's for all of us. We all have that exact same situation in our lives where the Lord will lead us. We all have his purposes built into our destiny. So I'm just super glad, and you can kind of rejoice with me here that God gave that to Mark, and he didn't give it to me. So hallelujah for that. I'm very grateful, and I pray for him all the time. But anyway, but I think that sometimes we have to do stuff that just needs to be done. But in terms of what your purpose is, that is the thing to continually seek from the Lord, so that you can find that trajectory to enter into.
Thank you, all three of you. This is wonderful stuff. We have time for one more question, and the producers, Christina, you've asked a couple questions. I think you have the ability to unmute yourself. Would you like to ask your questions? Or I could read them, but.
Sure, I can do that.
Great.
I asked really about what does it look like to continually invite non-native peoples into like a decolonized worldview and theology when the church is so far from where God would have us. So what are tools for that process? And then what does it look like to do it in a sustainable way?
So I'm going to start off. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. That's why we've spent most of our
married life,
a good portion of our married life building the place that we're Elahe Center, because we go around and speak all over the place, but even under the best circumstances, even when they have native conferences, it's still done in a non-native way. It's a Western way, right? And so I think for that transformation to take place in a lot of Western folk, they have to experience everything together. And, some of you, like Ray is here, and let's see, Terry was here, and others who would come when we had our place in Kentucky, Elahe Village, and teach. And people would have ceremony and stories, and sometimes we watch a funny Indian movie together, and then we sat around and talk, and elders would be there, and that whole experience, people would change. They would change their worldview. It would affect them so much. Now, I've been running Sweat Lodge, Jesus Sweat, for 30 plus years now. And I see some people, and forgive me, white people, please forgive this, but it's just a common phrase. Some people who are double white, right? They're like double white, they're, and in one experience in the sweat, where they experience everybody in their vulnerability and this body and mind and spirit and heart and everything taking place at the same time, their whole life has changed and their whole worldview has changed. And so I don't think it's something you can think yourself out of. I think it's something that you have to have the lived experience of. And I'm not just, whatever that means, and wherever you are and whoever that's with, but it takes experiences to change our worldview, not just thinking. And so, but one picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So when we see people whose hearts are open and who are living that way, I think it reinforces the message that's being taught. Yeah, I don't know. That's my feeble attempt at answering that.
Thanks so much.
I agree with Randy. I mean, what we tried to do is speak from the heart, because unless people sort of connect on an emotional level, then they won't change. This is why we tell our story in a good way, not the stories where you're the hero of your own story, but our painful stories. You have to create a place where people can actually hear and feel, and that helps. That is what changes people. There's a book called Night Spirits. It's by Isabel Bizador. She's a Northern Dene, and they moved her people in the 1950s, and about a third of the group died. And so then they moved back. And she says in one place, she says, my story is a gift. So you have to expose people to those stories of the trauma that they caused. And then if you do it in a good, you want them to sort of stay, and if they can feel it, then they have the emotional energy to change. But if they won't listen and they won't feel, then they don't change. But all I can do, according to Stephen Covey, is work on my presentation. So that's what I try to do. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
So one story from the heart beats 7 times 7, of Stephen Covey's secret formulas or whatever. So I just wanted to add that, I love hearing Ray teach. And he's one of the best when talking about what story means and things. But there's no formulas, right? For any of the things that we're talking about. Life is not about formulas. I'm glad you mentioned that. Because, in the world we live in, it's like, well, give me these 3 things, or what 3 things can I work on? And we even ask people like, hey, consider these things, rather than having them come up with their own ideas and questions and things like this. And so, life is a journey, and sometimes we get lost. But, we just keep going. Like my kids right now they're all grown, but, they're asking me how long they lost their jobs. They're not making their apartments rent, and sickness and all the things like that. And, it's, they're wondering, is it going to be okay? And, we've had, we could tell you some stories about how it's been for us. We've lost everything several times because of what we stand for. But we've come up with a philosophy, and this is it. Our mantra is like, everything's going to work out, but if it doesn't work out, it'll still work out.
There was a comment from Christina in the chat about being very amazed at the graciousness of our elders at kind of staying in this conversation and in the invitations they're offering people. So we want to thank you for that. I don't know, did Randy and Edith just disappear? Okay, their internet may have an issue. We will be breaking for small groups soon, but I wanted to invite Terry Wildman. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to the conversation. And I think that part of Christina's question, at least in the chat, was about how do you sustain yourselves on this journey, and what Randy shared about kind of the stories and the mantras that you go back to for your own heart encouragement. If there's anything you'd like to share about that.
Sure, I'll add a couple thoughts in. As I listen to Randy, and I've sat with Randy and Edith many times and in their home and talked with them, and I remember just in the beginning as I began to learn more about my Native heritage and more about what happened and to our people and what's happened to this land, I just became like overwhelmed. It's sometimes when I hear this today, I get overwhelmed. What can I do, this small person, this singular individual, what can I do to change anything? But I just kind of go back. I thought about that, and I was thinking about that, and the scripture came to my mind where Paul talks about the different ministries in the sacred family, the church, and he talks about Apollos and Paul, and people were, arguing over who had the best presentation or who had the best answer or who did the best at presenting Jesus or presenting the truth of the good story, the gospel. And Paul kind of puts it out there and says, hey, listen, some of us, we plant seeds. Some of us water. But it's the Creator himself who has to give the increase. He's the one who makes everything grow. And so I agree with what others have been saying, that it's more than what one individual can do. And we do have to find ways to work together, find ways to support one another, to encourage one another, to get the word out, to find others that we can share our vision with and invite into the journey. And sometimes those people can be people close by in your community. And we do what we can within our own communities, but also there's long distance relationships that are very valuable that we learn from each other. Paul and Apollos probably didn't know each other very well. I don't know if there's a record in the scripture that they ever even met, but yet they were doing the same work. And so I have to just kind of realize that it's through trusting and patience that we inherit the promises, the scripture says, that we inherit all these things. And so I want this to happen tomorrow. I want it to be, I want to scream and yell sometimes because it seems so important and so necessary. But I realize my voice is pretty small. But I'm thankful for all the voices that are beginning to speak, the books that are being written by Native people that are speaking into this, and not only by Native people who confess Christ, but also Native people who just have wisdom to share that they learn from creation and from the Creator that we all need to hear. And so I just want to encourage everybody to take advantage of all that's out there, of all that the different leaders and those who kind of laid a foundation for contextual ministry. There's been a foundation laid, and we need to make sure that we're building on that foundation in a good way. And so I just want to encourage everyone to look to those who have kind of been walking this for a season. We don't have all the answers, but we do know that we need each other, and we do have some information. And when we put it all together, we might be able to find ways to actually make more of a difference in the world.
Thank you, Terry. I hear that encouragement of looking at those who've gone before and the foundation that's been laid, that we're not starting from scratch, and reaching out to folks that we're called to be in relationship with, even if they're not literally right here. Thank you all so much for your wisdom. We let this time go a little bit long, and it's been so rich, and there's so much appreciation coming through the chat from our students for all of you elders. So I hope this dialogue will continue in organic ways, and we are going to give students a little time now for their small groups. So in just a minute, you'll move into your small groups, but just two quick announcements. There are prayer ministers available for the next hour. So there will be a break after small groups, and if you want to get prayer ministry, you can go then. But if you're feeling stirred up by something in this conversation and you'd like to go and have some listening time just for yourself with a prayer minister that will listen with you, you can go directly to the prayer room, but that will be open for the next hour. And just another reminder that later tonight will be a time for celebration of culture and stories and learnings. And you can be thinking about what you might like to share. And if you'd like to submit a video instead of doing it live, you can send it to WJEF@crew.org. All right, we will now move to our small group breakout rooms.